So, hello everyone. Everyone have your drinks on your side? Okay, so I would like to thank you everybody to welcome you to the first Taipei AI meetup. Yay! So since it's our first event, I would like to introduce you what is ZT.AI and what is Taipei AI and what DD42 are doing. So DD42 is an AI startup. We are incorporated in 2015 and based in Taiwan. And we are focusing on AI and deep learning algorithm development. And we provide AI visual recognition engine for edge devices, help our customer to leverage the AI technology. And we are very pleased to be the ambassador of Taipei AI, which is the part of ZT.AI. And ZT.AI is a community that have, now I believe they have like 30 cities that collaborate to leverage the potential of AI. And we want to build a local community and just connect the local people to the world. So AI is all about technology, right? But what we do is all about people. So we want to help more and more people to discover the possibility of AI, so you can more easily gather access to tools and knowledge and apply the AI in your business. So we believe we have more than 100 people here today, which made me really happy because I see a quite rapid growth in AI community here in Taiwan. And I want to thank you, our sponsor, TSS, Taiwan Startup Stadium. They've been put a lot of effort to help Taiwanese startup to go global. Yeah. And there is another amazing community called Exchange. And they are like I think they are one of the biggest internet worker community in Taiwan. So they dedicate to share their know-how and their connection among the young talents. And I also want to say thank you to Star Rocket Ivy. You understand? Yeah, she has been very, very cooperative in terms of helping us about the venue and supporting us. So this is today's agenda. You can submit your question if you have, I believe you have a lot of questions you want to ask our speakers, and you can submit your question anytime before the panel discussion started. So the QR code should be also posted in front of your chair. So you can submit it by the QR code. So let's start our first session. So we are very delighted, very happy to hear with Peg Low. He is you want to say hi to everyone? Yeah, he is the partner of Zeroth.AI. And Zeroth.AI is Asia's first AI accelerator in Asia, and they help AI startup to solve tomorrow's problem. And before that, he was also the director of Techstars London. And we also have Hajime here. He is the angel investor, also the serial entrepreneur. And he also holds a PhD in neural network, and he's running the AI consulting firm in Japan. Yeah. And we are also joined by Albert Chen, the VP of the Viscovery. And I believe many of you might heard about it. Viscovery is one of the leading visual research provider in Taiwan. And Albert himself have been help a lot of startups about the computer vision issue. And so I will let Take to start his session. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So let me just talk for a little bit. I think today, talk about 15 minutes to talk about the opportunities, challenges. Sorry, my slide. But you'll see the.
I don't think your mic's on.
Oh, hello. There we go. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Advantages, challenges, and opportunities in the AI space. How many people here are technical? Actually, just to get a sense. Okay, cool. How many people are in the kind of business side? Okay, it's a good mix. And how many people actually have their own startup? Cool. Good. Okay, cool. How many people are consultants? Oh, boo! How many people are bankers? Oh, okay, all right. Anyway, so yeah, I'm pretty honored to be here. D242 is absolutely fantastic, and I think they're definitely leading the way in AI here in Taipei. So really honored to be here with Hajime and Tammy on her invitation, but also to kind of learn from other people as well. We don't know everything. We're kind of a startup ourselves. So let me just briefly introduce who I am. Yeah, that's the best picture of me. So I'm a partner at Zeroth. So we're an accelerator program focused on artificial intelligence. We're the first in the world. We are definitely the first in Asia. And the idea was, look, artificial intelligence is going to be one of the more interesting technologies in the next, it already is, and it will be for the next, 10, 15 years. And we were starting to see, we want to see actually more interesting applications coming out of it. So previously, before moving back to Asia about 2 years ago, I was in London. And we all know what happened in London. Basically, in my 8 years in London, I saw Improbable, I saw DeepMind coming up, and that was just a very interesting field. And honestly, I really just wanted to work with interesting entrepreneurs. I really want to not work with Ubers and sharing economy, dumb apps, things that weren't exciting anymore. I didn't go into technology to work with crap. I went into technology to work with stuff that's really interesting, edge type of stuff. And that's kind of why we started Zeroth. Just want to share a little bit more about what I love. I love new ideas, family, food, and art. So Taipei has been great for food. And what I really hate is small thinking, right? So if you want to do an Uber, stuff like this, we're kind of honestly not interested. But if you really want to do ambitious, world-changing type of stuff, that's the stuff that I like and we like. So just briefly to describe kind of the Zeroth ecosystem, we just started our second batch about 2 weeks ago. So now we're actually 23 companies strong. We have representation. We have companies from all across Asia and the world. And honestly, I think this represents, let me just kind of go over here. I think this represents actually some of the most kind of interesting technologies, definitely here in Asia, and I think globally as well. So cool. So let me just talk a bit about advantages and what we see in applied artificial intelligence. I'm not going to go into the technical bit because I think we have people that are a little bit more well-versed in that particular perspective. Advantages. It's really kind of never been easier. So the amount of libraries and frameworks that we see hasn't made the barrier of both understanding and applying the technology a lot easier than it really has, ever has. We talked about the applied or the theoretical part. The theoretical kind of AI knowledge has been around for many, many, many years. But really from a technology perspective and a data perspective, the application of that particular theoretical framework really has come down quite a bit. Engineering just came out with a new Coursera course, which I need to sign up for, and I would kind of encourage everyone to kind of jump on. And obviously AWS and all their help, and TensorFlow and NVIDIA has been giving a lot of resources, actual resources to be able to devote to this particular piece, right? Some other advantages that I see is startups can actually attack niches that big companies can't or won't. And honestly, this is actually one of the biggest advantages. So if you compete with a Google or a Facebook or a Twitter, obviously you cannot, or Baidu or Tencent, you cannot attack a niche, or we suggest startups to not attack things that are super broad and super general, because obviously, or technologies or spaces that they're interested in, right? So Twitter was very interested in, with their acquisition in, what was that company in London? Anyway, they were attacking, I think they were attacking vision, because they basically, Twitter was trying to optimize their click-through, right? Yeah, the click-through rates for some of their advertisers. Facebook is doing a lot with augmented reality, right? So there are different spaces that you can kind of pivot around or try to attack that are not in their purview. Because if you ever go into that purview, or go in that space, you'll never win. And talking to the investor will always say, look, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Baidu is doing this particular bit. If you want to do, for example, autonomous driving, I highly suggest that really attack somewhere in that autonomous driving stack, and not just want to do a general kind of brain on autonomous driving, because it's just very, very hard to compete with the dollar spend that they have, that Baidu is putting into it, that Ford is trying to put into it, that Google is trying to put into it, and really instead attack that particular niche that they can. Maybe something with training data, right, in Southeast Asia. Maybe something training data with, or training data or simulated car training data in Vietnam. Something that's a lot more niche that they would never have kind of the data for. And the reason for that is, like I said before, it's data acquisition. Right? Google has much more data about how your purchasing intent, or your search intent. And Amazon will have a lot more information about your purchasing intent. Facebook has a lot more information about you as a person, what your interests are. You just cannot simply compete with those companies from a data acquisition perspective. Startups are actually more agile and nimble. Right, So if you attack a particular space, a niche, and for example, you're trying to attack a vision problem, and the applied problem that you're trying to get into really isn't the right problem, you can actually move to a different problem, but still applying the same technology. So definitely leverage as a startup. What we found is startups that leverage that particular nimbleness, and not just be fixed on the specific problem they're trying to solve, but be flexible in some of the problems depending on actually what the take-up is, tend to be more successful. The third advantage that we see in startups is go for non-obvious problems. This goes back to the second core layer, which is go for spaces that startups actually have an advantage over, or something that actually big companies don't do. Non-obvious problems kind of in our space means that probably something that probably wasn't so apparent, but with enough data or with enough insight, you might be able to discern some sort of signal from all that noise. We're starting to see, we haven't really seen that many sound startups. We're starting, and just by the way, I'm going to be very open in this forum. Please don't tweet everything that I say out. Please use some discretion. But I will try to be open just to elevate the level of discourse here. For example, we're working with MTR. So we partnered up with MTR, which is the Hong Kong version of MRT, I think here in Taiwan, which is public transportation system. And so what they offer is CCTV-like data, video and sound. And some of we haven't, none of the startups are actually dealing with this yet, but we were brainstorming, actually, based off of the data input, what are some of the areas that could be interesting? And we're thinking about whether sound could be an indicator of engine problems or train failures. And maybe that's actually a more accurate predictor of actually train failures and engine failures and car failures. We haven't had that many startups deal with sound yet, but that's something that we're more eager to see whether sound's actually a more, for example, that's a better problem, or that's a better indicator of certain problems. But definitely, I think, with startups, there's definitely a few challenges. And here I'm just going to try to go a little bit more macro and then talk about specific examples as I explain certain things. So I think in these challenges, I'll talk about from an Asian AI startup perspective. So if you're an AI startup in Asia, these are some of the challenges you might have. And it won't cover the US, it won't cover mainland China as much. I definitely think there's a funding gap, right? There's a funding gap in terms of investors and essentially kind of understanding or being able to fund these particular type of startups. So I think you see a lot of probably seed deals or seed investments that exist, and you say, well, there's nothing interesting about it, but I'm doing something cool in AI, but there's not as much available funds. And so you definitely see that space, and we definitely see that funding gap available here. A lot of it is because of the investor technical gap. Most investors that we see across the region are not technical. And so because of that nature, it's very hard for investors to understand, is this really AI? Because everyone's doing AI now. Everyone's doing machine learning. If they're smart, they say they do AI. If they're slightly smarter, they say we don't do AI, we do machine learning. Sounds a little bit more technical, so therefore you should trust us more. But honestly, everyone does AI machine learning now. And so for investors, it's very hard to discern exactly what's really AI, what's really machine learning because of that investor technical gap. And because of that, it's very hard for these investors to discern. And so oftentimes we definitely hear from fellow investors to say, look, is this really AI or is this really not AI? And we spend a lot of time trying to educate our fellow investors to be able to deal with that. There's also an expertise gap. And what I mean by the expertise gap is actually in terms of employees, right? So if you're a startup trying to recruit people that dealt something with machine learning or dealt with embedded systems or computer vision, it is hard. And also that expertise is very expensive. It definitely is a big issue. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier. And so oftentimes we hear this argument, startups say, hey, we need to move to the valley because there's more expertise there. I don't necessarily buy into that argument either because the expertise that's there costs $600,000 US dollars to hire as well. But there definitely is kind of an expertise gap. So for startups that are thinking about hiring locally, I think one has to have one has to tolerate more, I think, probably a little bit more capital and also a little bit more runway in terms of training employees to be able to kind of deal with this particular space. Another challenge that we see is the expectation versus reality gap in the sense that, look, there's a reality of actually what AI can deliver and what applications can deliver, and the expectation of what it can deliver and kind of the reality of what it can deliver. And to some degree, my normal thought process when thinking about startup is, if they say they can deliver, they're an engine that can deliver X, Y, and Z for so many different industries, and applications run from this X, X1, X2, and X3, then it's way too broad, right? If they can do in reality one thing for one industry, oftentimes actually that's a much better indicator of their expertise. So those are some of the kind of things that we deal with. I don't have that much more time, so maybe I'll try to hurry up a little bit. So I think the opportunities, in artificial intelligence, if you're a startup that's thinking about artificial intelligence, kind of alluded to this before, is attack that niche. Like whatever you discern, whatever industry you want to discern, or what particular technology you want to implement, attack that very niche, right? Because it's really about data acquisition, right? So the more niche you can get, the more accurate you can train your algorithm, the more you have a shot to actually solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And I would argue the easier it is to compel investor capital to come in. Leverage your available resources, right? So what if you're in Taipei, right? Yes, maybe you could be in mainland China and be able to hire more PhDs or in the valley. But the thing is, that's why I love DT42 and what they've done. They've built up the critical mass now. People understand what they're trying to do. And so as you build this critical mass, actually resources come to you, right? Because people say you're actually doing really, really cool, interesting shit. So people actually gravitate towards that critical mass. So leverage your available resources because it becomes a critical mass, and then you tend to have a gravitational pull and people want to work with you. And the last point is data acquisition, right? Really think about data acquisition as a kind of main tenet of what you're trying to do, right? Obviously think of business problem, what business problem are you trying to solve, but really trying to think about how you're going to acquire that data, and why is that data, and how much of that data do you need, and what will that data reveal to you? Because once you figure that piece out, things tend to be a little bit kind of more easy after that. There's actually another insight that makes me kind of think about it. It's, I just tweeted this out earlier today. So, a lot of startups, sorry, I know I'm over time. A lot of startups, especially one of the learnings that we had between the second batch and the first batch of startups is, right now the second startup batch is really thinking about how do I monetize? How do I monetize? And if you're a startup, you definitely have to think about how to monetize. Definitely have an answer if an investor says, how do you monetize? We're thinking about SaaS, we're thinking about subscription price of this, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, yes, 2 seconds. But when you monetize, you don't need to have an exact answer. That's one thing. You don't have to have exactly an exact answer, because it actually takes time to figure out your pricing model. It takes time to figure out your monetization model. So definitely, if you don't have something, say roughly this is it, but that's my answer. And the second insight that we understood is growth strategy is the right strategy for early stage startups all across the world. Go for growth first. Go as big. Because once you monetize, then you gain a constraint on you cap your growth a bit. Go for growth first. But your monetization strategy don't copy the models that work in the US. Is not always applicable to Asia. It's not applicable to almost anything. It's not applicable to Europe where I was. So go for growth first, but your monetization strategy is going to be slightly different. And it's dependent very heavily on actually what your growth phase is. If your growth phase is you've got 10,000 users, right? Then your monetization strategy is very, very different from 100 million customers. So really go for growth first, then you'll figure out how to monetize after that. And it's going to be very different from any model that you've ever seen. So go for growth, figure out monetization later, but definitely have an answer for monetization. Sorry, that was very technical, but I just wanted to share that. I've got a last slide, but I don't think I have any time. So maybe I'll just send the deck over or put it on SlideShare. But these are some of the things that we see AI opportunities across the region. Maybe this will be helpful for somebody. Anyway, that's all I have. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Hajime, and I'm talking about a monetization strategy for AI because I got a lot of inquiry from startups like how we can monetize because compared to US or maybe in China, most of the Asian startups need a monetization strategy first, otherwise the investors are unwilling to invest. So that is why anyway we have to construct a logic at least for this. So I'm just talking about this topic. So before that, I'm making a quick self-introduction. My name is Hajime Hotta, coming from Japan. And I got a PhD at the age of 25 years old and from a neural network when in 2008. It's too early, so nobody talks about a neural network at that time. Yeah, and I applied this neural network technology to the ad tech company, which was sold to Yahoo Japan, and I did another mobile tech, also sold to a big company. So I would say I was a serial entrepreneur in Japan, but now I moved out from Japan to recently in Vietnam for new challenges. And my passion is because the Japan's GDP growth is not so great. So I feel that if I was in Japan, maybe the limitation of our potential is very limited. So I wanted to connect to all the other part of Asia, because China itself is too strong already. So we want to connect maybe Taiwan or Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, whatever, to build up a very globally competitive startup ecosystem. So talking about AI, as you know, AI startup is increasing now because I just watched out the Y Combinator, and the last batch was only one startup, but this current batch, it increases to 7 projects already, and all related to AI. So I feel this is the right trend for now. Yeah, because AI was told many times, maybe from a couple of years ago, but actually AI viable as a startup could be right now. For example, one is a Heroku for deep learning, or some machine learning API, but with less data, or an auto-generated knowledge base, kind of Wikipedia kind of things, or a Slack wiki for business, or I personally wanted to try this a lot, but it's automatic notes for business meetings. And This is a predictive assistant that anticipates your needs. So, I feel very happy that a lot of AI companies started right now, even in the US. So maybe logically, within this year or next year, it's a very great chance for agent startups to do the AI startups. So, but we need to think about the three parts for the monetization. So I'm talking about the maturity, industry, and the business model. The first one, maturity. I always feel that it's very important to see the timing of when we should start, because I started my neural network study in 2005. This used to be definitely too early. So if I did some of the machine learning startup then, maybe I could not do anything. But because at that time the advertisement technology is very hot, so I accidentally succeeded. But how to say? The first phase is actually just a technical development, which is not actually related to the real businesses. But anyway, everybody's very excited with the deep learning. So that is why a DeepMind, for example, they just did a technology, but it got a higher value. But it's not the real business yet. And after that, the maturity is getting up because the fund is coming on. But because the final goal is the consumer, but consumer requires a super high expectation, which current technology cannot meet. So in the process, from the technical phase to the consumer phase, we may have a first a big enterprise phase. They are very open if you do a lot of customization for them, and so long as they made, let's say, just 10% of the tuning up, then they will get a lot of benefits. So that is why even with a lower level of the technology, but they can get a benefit from the technology. But for SME, because AI is a kind of essentially maybe a reduction of cost, or maybe increase a bit of sales performance. But if for example, I just spent $1,000 and then if I cut the cost into $900, of course my benefits is only $100. So it has to be super easy. Otherwise, they don't want to pay money, right? For only a small money. But for a big enterprise, their cost is always a few million or few 10 million per month type of the cost. So if they can reduce 10%, it's going to be already very huge. So that is why so phase 4 maturity phases, and I feel currently the technology phase is over, or of course some of the tech companies are always still doing, but our main phase is phase 2, which is for the big enterprise. So as a startup, of course, we can do the solution for the big enterprise, or we can foresee the future within 1 or 2 years to do a SME type of the for a SaaS model for SME type of businesses. And if we do consumer, then I personally feel that it's too early. So second point is industry. I just investigate a lot of startups in the UK and the US, and I found 4 points. So number 1 is a deep domain expertise to bear in the complex domain. This is very important because maybe AI is not so, for example, Google or Facebook or Amazon, they do a very general AI, but so if as a startup you do the same thing, then of course Google does much better, right? But if we just dive into accounting or a legal or a very a niche type of the domain, and we have we are combining both of the domain knowledge and the AI knowledge together, then we can surely build up some competitive advantage, even with some of the big enterprise. So it's a very important point. The second one is developing a proprietary algorithm, and the third one is creating a neural network effect maybe the tech also said about that, but we need to have some of the mechanism to get a data which is exclusive. Then, like, of course, like, we can increase the accuracy consistently, which other guys cannot do. So one of the startup I help is a legal startup, and like the founder is a lawyer, and the CTO is a AI guy, and they like collect a lot of like contracts, and then put all of those like sentences together for the machine learning. It's very strong because like contracts is basically very confidential thing, which is not uploaded on the web. So maybe it's only the legal firm can get, and which is like directly contributing to the accuracy of the AI. So like this kind of thing is important for startups. And the fourth one is by securing adequate capital. So by far the most important thing is the talent. And actually I have a base in Vietnam because I feel like there are so many computer science talents there who we can educate them as an AI engineer. But if I come back into Japan, it's pretty difficult to find a real talent. Maybe I need to pay, let's say like $50,000 for recruiting one people, and they're super picky, right? So they have a lot of options. If we offer like $200,000 per year, they may come to us, but if Google made another bigger offer, then they will suddenly go to Google. So it's like a very difficult situation. So basically we need a capital to hire them. But like another way is that maybe for like DT42 as well, we can foster some of the community for developers. And if the developers are passionate about like the technology itself rather than the compensation, then that would be another way to go. And yeah, activity is greatest within the marketing advertising. It's very big. And information technology, business intelligence, analytics functions, the financial tech sector. Most of the very successful startup in the UK or US are from this industry. And it's not so big, but it's a decent amount of the startups are working on the human resource functions or the infrastructure, healthcare, or retail sectors. So we can pick up some of the verticals here, and then just think about how to collect the data or how to gather some of like a domain expertise. Then we can think about what to do. The last point is the business model. It is basically, we have two ways to make money. So number one is to bring up the revenue of like other enterprise. Then we can get some of the commission from them. Or the second model is to reduce the cost. And then we can get a bit of consultation fee from them. And for like brings up the revenue, basically the domain is marketing, advertising or recommendation or business intelligence. And here, a lot of startups do some like a monthly subscription fee type of the model, but basically with this, transaction-based charging is very essential because like maybe the starting point is very low, like just increasing $1,000, then we can get $50 only. But once this business is going up, then we can get more and more transaction revenue. And basically a lot of VCs see whether these guys are working on the transaction model or like a monthly subscription model only. So this is number one. And about the reduction of the cost, it is a bit of like conflict because like I will help you reduce $100 for the operation. Then please give me $100. It doesn't make sense at all. So if like we are seriously working on reducing the cost, then we have to reduce our cost as well. That is very like, how to say, it's conflicting because we want to make money. So this is the first very hard part. And the second part is actually we have found very recently, but clients basically want to get the 100% accuracy. So let's say one of the projects that I work on is OCR, like recognizing handwritten form, let's say. And then basically those informations are very critical. It's my name, my personal name, and my phone number, and my mailing address. If the accuracy is 90%, then they cannot send me any documents, or they are just writing my wrong name, which is too critical. So if we say yeah, our solution is 95% accuracy, 97% accuracy, it doesn't make sense because they need 100% anyway. One of the very successful case that I work on is a combination with a BPO, the business process outsourcing, or some a UI, UX tricks to avoid this issue. For example, about the handwritten form case, some a very big insurance company in Japan, they hire 100 people only to input the data from a handwritten form into the database. 100 employee again. So it is of course they don't hire directly, but they use some a BPO service to work on it. So if we can achieve, let's say 90% of the accuracy for the handwriting recognition, then those people can work on the correction instead of inputting, which may cut a lot of time, right? So this project succeeded in reducing 80% of the human resources. That means they can pay for only 20 people. So, but another very important thing is actually that project just includes the BPO part as a one package rather than just providing the software. So we can charge from the BPO part as well as the software. That makes money. But if they just provide a software, it's just maybe license fee, which is very nominal, and I don't think it's a big deal. So just what I wanted to say here is we need to think about the business model and just going straight forward, and it's very difficult to make money. So that is why this case is a combination with the BPO. So yeah, I talked about 3 points. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello. Tak and Hajime and I, we did not talk about what we're going to speak today, but as it turns out, we are all talking about the same thing, which is how should AI startups try to figure out the right business model, which is also a problem that I've been asking myself for more than 10 years. I've been doing computer vision problems since 2003, and due to some personal issues, I've always been more fascinated about these business problems instead of the research problems, which is also why I eventually ventured into these startup businesses, and which is what I spent most of my time during the past several years doing. So luckily, standing at this point of time, we have a lot of good blogs and materials that's been written. So this is a report that is done by the Boston Computing Group alongside with Baidu's cloud division. So they discuss all these different possible ways for AI companies or startups to succeed. And number one here, it's for these traditional conglomerates like Google, Microsoft, or all these big companies with unlimited machines and all the data that they want. And they build their own DNN AI libraries. And then they build up TensorFlows, etc. And they have these very generic applications or functions like face recognition that could be used in all these different types of vertical applications. So it's definitely hard for any AI startup to try to compete with these guys. And this is what most of the startups nowadays that have managed to still survive. This is not what we do. number two here, it's like IBM or traditional big businesses where they don't necessarily have all these things down here, but they also still have very domain-specific knowledge. For example, IBM, they've been doing these system integration solutions for European cities for the past 10, 20 years. From their highways, infrastructures, electronics, license plate recognition to building. They do it all. So there is still definitely some space. And like for IBM, Watson, for example, they have accumulated lots and lots of these medical imaging domain knowledge. So now it comes to the smaller pie. Hardware companies like Intel, NVIDIA, or I think DT42's position is also closer to the hardware company where we try to enable some solutions. And for traditional industries or businesses like Baocheng or any of these hidden champions in Taiwan, we definitely have lots and lots of domain-specific knowledge, but we don't have all these other things to help leverage and make the most out of these things. So this is where these vertical AI startups come in, where we might have built up a small team and we have worked closely with a specific vertical so that we have some technical advantages as well as first movers advantage. And it's not only limited to problems that we see more often nowadays, but including agriculture, traditional manufacturing, medical, not just imaging, but like biography, lots of all these things, financial, retail, and transportation. So there's 4 things. This is from the blog from Bradford Cross. Just in case I still don't get all the points clear today, you could go onto his blog to read it. The reason why a vertical AI could compete with all these big companies is because we work hard to build an end-to-end solution that satisfies the customer's requirement. Say a traditional business, they don't really have the means to do all these recognition, build up all these products, but we could do it very quickly for them. And of course, in this process, we need to have the subject matter expertise and build up proprietary data that could not just help you get a head start, but also in the long run, how are you going to use the data that you produce during this process to help you remain competitive? And obviously, the AI needs to deliver core value. If after doing all these things, the products that you recommend, it's only still just 1%, 2% better, then you're not going to survive for long. So, and this is the reasons why a business might, or AI might consider going vertical, including like you don't want your critical components to be controlled by others, or for example, many of the recognition core capabilities, they get sort of commoditized, so it's easier for people to just put together these blocks and come up with a product. And this is a very good point. Every company in the future, they're more or less going to become software companies. And a good reason for things other than what Tak and Hajime had talked about, why we should focus on servicing some of these big enterprises first instead of going directly to consumers. Another reason to add to that is that enterprise exits come in cohorts. When a specific domain is hot, for example, during the past several years, all these ad tech companies, or probably not too long in the future, there's going to be cohorts of autonomous driving startups that exit one by one. So even though the sum of these exits, they don't add up to that big of the individual numbers are not really that big of an exit, but the sum and the number of exits, they're going to be much more. So these are some interesting charts. So the question would be, what vertical would you choose? And for those of you that don't know, Viscovery have focused very hard on retail and ad tech verticals during the past. But obviously there's issues that we've been encountering and quickly adapting to and still working hard on. So there's many different ways to help you determine which vertical should you choose. Obviously you need to have the sufficient domain expertise, but also you should also look at the market sectors by their overall capacity, market cap, and also margin. This is one big error that I've made during the past several years. If you go into a sector that itself is starving and not being able to make a good margin, it's going to be an even harder sell if you try to sell them a product and trying to convince them that they could save more in the future or make more in the future, because they themselves, they don't have that big of a margin to play with. So there's going to be much more discussions about these at some other talk in the future if you guys are interested. But okay, so and you can see that the computer's connections. Okay, so ad tech here, it's a little over its prime time, but it's still not completely solved. And there's been lots of advertisers that are reflecting upon their discussions, their investments into these advertising technologies, discussing whether it have really improved their profits, etc. So I'll leave this for some other day. This is another chart that I've always been very fascinated about. When you're assessing which vertical to attack and where to position yourself, there's always this trade-off between market risk and technical risk. When you take a high technical risk and a high market risk, for example, when Google first came out, the internet is still very small, and all you need to do is register your website. People didn't see this huge growth coming. So it definitely had a very risky market position, as well as it's working on technology that has never been developed before. However, it succeeded, so it's still in color. For those that had decided to take on less risky routes, it doesn't always guarantee a better exit. Most of you here probably have never heard about Hotta. It was one of the earliest electronic car companies in the United States. Warren Buffett saw Geely in China building some 20-year-old building cars on 20, 30-year-old platforms and putting huge batteries onto them. And he thought, this is great. I could bring in electronic cars to the United States cheaply, sell it for only $30,000, and people are going to go crazy and are all going to buy it. However, people hated it. Nobody bought it. And even though it had really low technical risk, it's using all the existing technologies, as well as, why would you not buy a $30,000 US dollar electronic car that could drive 200 miles on a single charge? However, it failed. So there's just endless examples of a successful vertical AI startups. And I still, I came back to Taiwan for 2 years, and I still cannot forget about Blue River Technology. They're doing very, very well. Originally, they tried to use computer vision to help identify crops so that they could do the whole agriculture thing organically. So in the beginning, when they see weed, they would just have a hose go down there and inject hot water and kill the weed. And later on, they've improved, and they're doing really well now, and they could do very precise agriculture. Instead of watering the whole field, they could just water on the specific spots that the seed is growing. So, another example, not to do too much advertising here, is people that have known me in the past would have asked me, so Viscovery, you do this, and this recognition. Don't Google do these as well? And how are you going to survive? So the thing is that we focused so much on recognizing content and videos that are of commercial value. From the earlier days, we do photo recognition, to later on, we try to do these content-related advertisements. So as you can see, for the same scene here, when you throw it into Viscovery's suite of recognition algorithms, it recognizes the necessary who's the actor, actress, and the items, there's smartphones, and there's this huge necklace and baseball cap, and all these things we could easily provide to advertisers or platforms to let them do content-related advertisement. Whereas these more general-purpose AI, like Baidu, does a great job at telling, okay, it's a 32-year-old male Asian, or Google, or Amazon, their recognition engines are even a bigger mess. they have a human classifier and the animal classifier and the single person classifier. So the first 3 recognition results, it shouts there's people, there's a single person, and there is not an animal, things like that. So even for a vertical that seems to have such high overlap with general purpose AI, what general purpose AI companies provide, there's still a huge difference in terms of the usability or the value of the information that you recognize. So for earlier stage startups, people try to summarize the biggest factors for success this is summarized over 200 successful startups. And timing, execution, and business model, and funding. These are all important. These are the 5 most important factors. But obviously, the most important thing is still timing. And Hajime did ad tech at the perfect timing, where it's at the beginning of when this whole ad tech thing is going to take off. And unfortunately, Viscovery entered the whole ad tech business in sort of a time where advertisers are starting to critically examine the effectiveness of digital advertising. However, when there is a crisis, it doesn't mean that there is no opportunity to build upon it and then get something good out of it. For example, when the dot-com bubble bursted, there were lots of people in the Silicon Valley that were so desperate to get a bit more money, and their housing values are tanking. And that is when Airbnb came out. They let homeowners rent out empty rooms so they could make extra money. And after the dot-com bubble bursted, even though all those money that the investor had invested had gone to waste, but the global internet bandwidth had increased like 10 times, 100 times. All those money have gone into there. And that's why around like 2004, 2005, websites like YouTube were able to survive and thrive because the bandwidth now is just not a problem. And more than 50% of the households in the United States have broadband connection. So we're able to watch lots and lots of videos at home. And Uber came out also at a very interesting time where the housing bubble bursted. And people are trying to make a bit more money. And so instead of just sitting at home all day, when you're driving around, why not make another $10, $100 every day by just driving people around? So timing is very, very important, and there is no golden rule of thumb of like when would be the right time to attack the right vertical. But from the past, I've always been had a more pessimistic view. Like you can't really learn from anyone's success. The success is hard to replicate. However, from lots and lots of failures, you definitely would have the opportunity to learn like, okay, I probably should not take this path, and this path when I see these situations in the future. So I think 2 good rule of thumbs. First of all is that the customers or your potential clients, regardless of whether it's directly to C or to B, they need to have immediate unmet needs. Trying to sell people something that they don't need, it's just way too unrealistic and impractical. And also, another thing that people are easy to neglect is VCs are scouting that area very actively and ready to invest. So when you're out there telling people that, yes, we do autonomous driving nowadays, there's cohorts of VCs. They would just flock to you and try to just give money to you. If you go out there and tell people that you're doing, say, edutech, technology for education, the number of VCs that are interested there might not be that much. So, yeah, those are the 2 rule of thumbs if you want me to summarize very briefly my years of findings. And of course, doing startup is nothing too easy. For anyone that's ever been through this process 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, if you don't have the passion, then you can't, like when you encounter these challenges and difficulties, you won't have the courage to wake up in the morning. You wish that you just stay in bed for the whole day. Passion is really, really important. And then when you're talking about your business models, you have to repeatedly ask yourself, okay, time's up. I'll probably quickly skip to the last slide. So I think these are just pretty old stuff, and most of you probably have heard about it for many, many times. So I originally wanted to share a bit more about my past failures. And Viscovery is like the fourth startup that I've helped. Never been a co-founder of any of these. The first ones, when we were still pitching and doing roadshows, we've been swallowed alive. Google came up with a completely free solution in just 3 months since we started doing our roadshows. Tangent Vision Science, we aimed for a very narrow exit. We did these awesome shadow processing stuff. If you go online and find my longer talks given at some other places, you would see some videos about it. And it's still pretty awesome. And Adobe Photoshop, they still don't have this even as of now. However, our only way out is getting acquired by Adobe. And they're not going to pay like $50, $100 million for our service because like if you just average it over the cost of their software, people are only going to click it like 1 out of 1,000 or 10,000 times. So we'd be lucky if they share like 10 cents with every copy of license that they sell. And failing to disrupt the market, it's not an exact failure case, but like, so when Viscovery started doing these content-related advertisement business, we thought like we could increase the effectiveness by like 10 times, 100 times. We're getting like 2 to 3 times improvements, but it's still not disruptive enough. So it's not making the waves that we expected, even though in a very small and well-defined niche. And another problem that I've encountered before, especially in ad tech nowadays, everybody is lying about their numbers. The numbers are greatly bloated. People are saying that, oh, I have this, and this that are so good. Then there's no easy way to monitor it. And when everybody's lying about 100 times improvements, and we are providing an honest result of, okay, you see this is a 2 to 3 time improvement, it's hard to sell. So we're still working hard on it. And don't underestimate the cost of going vertical. One last point. Thank you. So even when you try to focus, after you've chosen a vertical and worked so hard in that vertical and came up with things that satisfies going from end to end, sometimes you would realize that after putting in so much resources, at the very end, and in Viscovery's case, all the existing digital advertisers, and the way that they do business, there's a lot of things going underneath the table. So, and when we go in there and try to connect to the last point and trying to take over their business, they become very, very alert about your existence. And you know, it's even harder. So like, sometimes you have to take a step back and just help all these instead of being able to go from end to end and your chosen vertical, sometimes you would be forced to take a step back and just become the tool provider in that vertical. And it definitely poses long-term risk, but how we should overcome these issues, it's something that I probably would be happy to share in 1 to 2 years from now. So that's it for today's talk. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so if you haven't started to submit your question through our Google Form, you can do it now because our panel discussion is going to start it. And so we got to the most exciting part of today's session. It is, before we start a panel discussion, we really put a lot of effort to assemble people here. Today we have people from a bunch of different fields, like people I know. I want to break down a little bit people who are here today so you will have a better idea who is in the room. So we got people are startup founders, and we have some VCs here, and we also have people from Microsoft, IBM, NVIDIA, and Foxconn. And it is a community, it's not a speech, so we need to communicate, right? And it's a shame if we don't talk to each other. So I would like to have some people volunteer to introduce yourself and maybe can talk about why you are here today and maybe your point of view about AI, because I know a lot of you are actually AI expert and you have been give a talk in other events. So anyone want to volunteer? I know, I see you want to talk about, right?
Okay, great. Okay, I am Leo Liao from the media. As we know, as a weapon provider company, it's so sweet that AI is everywhere, right? But actually, my personal view is humanity is always first, not the AI. So my job is caring about the developer relationship in app. And that's why I like to make new friends who work for future. In this case, like bring AI into the reality, right? But like I said before, AI is not always first. It's make it easy to realize that when you dream in day or night, maybe you are daydreamer, I know. But when you dreaming, you are dreaming of people, right? Not the machine, right? So that's why I joined here today. Like to make a new discussion with everybody in this community. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I'm from Honduras. I've been in Taiwan for quite a while. I'm a startup founder, and I specialize in emotion recognition. So I've been doing emotion recognition from text for social media, and more recently I've been doing emotion recognition from video footage. I'll be working also in doing that from audio. And the idea is, well, my main goal is eventually to make all those machines understand how we feel, because I believe that that's the only way to improve the human-computer interaction. So, well, if you guys want to talk to me later, share some ideas or whatever, so I'll be around. Thank you.
I'm Max. I'm from Angel Video. Thank you for having us here to meet our friends and colleagues. And I accidentally to join this event because from the friends from AWS. So the Angel Video, we are a company, the startup company. We're making on the AI hardware. What means hardware? It means we run TensorFlow. We run everything on the camera device. And why we're doing that is that because most of the team from the HTC guys, and so we want to make a smartphone to the smart camera. But how to land it to the AI in the field? We think you need a platform. You need a right carrier. Because before we're doing the VR thing stuff in the dreaming in the lab or things or doing the vibe stuff, and we realized that if you don't have a carrier, you cannot let it your algorithm or your software everything. So since we're in Taiwan and we are right now is a 30 people team, so if people you are looking for the camera or you're looking the carrier want to driving some AI or to on the field or some user case. And we are here to open to communicate with everybody. The company called Angel Video, making camera. Thank you.
Thank you.
So anyone? No? No? Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is June. I live in Sweden and also in Germany, particularly in Germany for more than 10 years. And I'm now in Taiwan. Okay, my mission is that we try to help people out of their loneliness and isolation, particularly for the retired person. And I think about the AI and also the smart caring is going to be very important and also shaping our living together. So living together, I mean the future of long-term care is not majorly based on medical care, but about the mutual help from the community. And this is what we learned from Germany and also from Scandinavian nation. So I think this kind of AI, I particularly want to help the engineer to know about the social need and about the human desire and how they can communicate with the ordinary people about their need and help them to out of their isolation. Okay, please contact me if you have this kind of interest. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for wonderful sharing. I'm Richard, so pleasure to be here this afternoon. I want to share two things. The first thing is I'm working with a startup who are doing business intelligence. We want to renovate the idea how to make innovation better, faster, and quicker, especially in the IoT field. So it's a startup I'm working with. The other thing I'd like to share is I'm a curator of the WEF Global Shaper World Economic Forum. So we are a bunch of people, we gather, we focus on the challenge Taiwan is facing. So I believe there's a lot of expert and passionate people here, and we all care about Taiwan. So if you are interested in solving the issue Taiwan is facing and business intelligence, I'm happy to be here to talk with you. I'm Rachel. Thank you.
I want to introduce themselves, or I will do a roll call. You like this? I think you want to.
Hello everyone, my name is Ulysses, and right now I'm working in the cloud computing companies as a role of business development. Specialty is in the networking for the telco companies. I'm very happy that three keynote speakers has mentioned about the importance of being vertical to build out end-to-end solutions and focus on how to monetize. Because that's one of the biggest problems right now in the telco companies. They want to learn AI, but they don't know how to do the AI with business. So one of my job is trying to find some software company applications, software companies to work with us and to make some case provens for the telco company. So if you have any interest for the telcos, you can come to me and we have a good, I think we can have a very good talk. Thank you.
I will start the panel discussion now, so I would like Tammy to take over the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tammy. I'm the data scientist and deep learning researcher at DT42, and I'm also the co-founder. So thank you everyone for joining the event today. And also appreciate all the keynote speakers talk about DT42. So I guess it's time to really have a short introduction of what we are really doing. So DT42 is a pure software company. So we focus on providing the better and easier user experience to bring the software to hardware and focusing on AI technology. So what we do is we provide the software infrastructure, including the software deployment and AI algorithms, so help our customer to have the better user AI experience on hardware devices.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. I'm a researcher in computer vision, and now I'm head of research team in DT42.
So great. So now let's welcome two more speakers to join our panel discussion. And the first one is Jaan. Hello, Jaan. Can you hear us well? Hello? And we cannot hear. Sorry, some technical problem.
Hello? I do think that my microphone is working.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So Jaan is a programmer and a physicist, and he's also an AI investor, invested in many AI companies. In his portfolio, including the Google DeepMind, one of the best AI companies in the world.
And we also have Jaan. He is a partner at Appworks Ventures, and his area of expertise including fundraising, management, investment, and the internet industry. And we also have Peg, Hajime, and Albert. Welcome to join this panel discussion.
So before we start, I really like to thank Tak and Hajime again because he fly from Hong Kong and Vietnam just for this event. And thank you very much. And also Joseph and Albert, really appreciate your time. I know both of you are very busy. And Joseph is from Appworks. Appworks is the leading accelerator in Taiwan. And the startups in Appworks are not only in Taiwan but also including many startups from Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on. And Albert from Viscovery, I think he already introduced himself. So welcome everybody. So our first question in the panel discussion will be the challenges in AI era. And so Jaan, and we would like you to share your opinions about this topic first. And so people are talking about AI all the time. The media is basically a hype now. Some people worry about AI might take their jobs. And some people worry that one day when AI becomes very smart, they will learn by themselves and they will destroy the world. But what's your opinion of that? Anything related to this topic?
Right, so myself, I have worked for about 8 years now, thinking about a really long-term impacts, potential negative impacts. And I do think that AI is not necessarily sort of a tool or technology as any other tools or technologies we have developed. It's a technology that can potentially develop further technologies. In fact, I was just yesterday watching Jeff Dean's, the head of Google Brains, talk, and they are heavily investing in developing systems called, the program called Learning to Learn. They're developing AIs to develop AIs. So now the problem there is that whenever we have tools that we need to control, usually the control mechanism is assuming that the tool is not smart enough to be aware that there is a control mechanism that is used to control it or constrain it. So in some ways we are creating a tension between our increasing need for more and more powerful tools, that is AI, and on the other hand, our need to still control what's going to happen, to make sure that the effects of those tools are predictable. So indeed, there is, I would say that there's a lot of concern about social impacts of AI, which in my view is actually kind of shorter term topic than the topic that I'm concerned about, because social impacts, they still assume a functioning civilization and existing humanity. Whereas my concerns are basically longer term, once we have AIs that are capable of having significant environmental impact, then we might find ourselves in a situation where we have inadvertently put many other species, because there's a lot of, people say that there's a wave of extinction from cosmical scale. What's happening on a planet right now is we have extinction event. Humans are driving a lot of species extinct, and we're not driving them extinct because we're going to deliberately malicious towards them. We're basically changing the environment in ways that are no longer compatible with their existence. So long-term concern is that once we have AI that is able to have big impacts over the environment, then the environment might no longer be inhabitable for humans and other biologicals.
You talk about the social impact and not to human, but also to the other species. And here I would like to limit the scope to human race and ask one more question. So I once read an article talking about because the AI technology requires a lot of data and heavy computation. So this is for the developed countries such as US or many European countries, this might not be a big deal. And also in Japan, Korea, and maybe China, even Taiwan. But it would be very difficult for some developing country to collect such big amount of data to have the storage and also have the equipment for this heavy computation. So it will increase the gap between the developing country and the developed country. So what's your view about that? Do you think that will happen?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that I haven't thought much about. Intuitively, I would think that the most the bigger gap still comes from technology, not so much about from data, because the amount of data really is a function of the power of the AI, the power of the machine learning that you have. In fact, one of the biggest constraints of current machine learning systems is that they require a lot of data. So people are very aware of that, so that they are actually trying to address that problem. And then mine, Gary Marcus, who just sold his AI startup to Uber, he points out that humans are able to understand sentences that have never been said before. You can construct a long sentence and be reasonably sure that it has never been said before. And when it's kind of structurally correct, when you say that to other humans, they will understand in a way that AI would not necessarily understand, because it's a completely out of sample data point. So yeah, I think it's correct that companies and countries that have lots of data are at the advantage right now. But I think the long-term dynamic is more kind of determined by their ability to do research and less so about their ability to basically push a lot of data to the problem.
Yeah, so Tak, what about your view? I think this kind of potential issue might not only happen in the developed country or the developing country, it actually will also happen in the startups, the competition between startups and big corps, right? So what do you view about that?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. This is the first time I've heard Jaan's opinion on this in this space. I think, in terms of the startup versus corporate, I think what we're starting to understand or what we're starting to see is, the hypothesis before was that, everyone's data is the new gold, and everyone wants to, corporations want to hold on to a lot of their data. But actually, what's factually true seems to be that probably the Google and the Baidu's that have a lot of data know how to, but the companies that are not technologically that advanced know that they do have data, know that they have to do something with it, don't know what to do with it, so they tend to be actually more open with some of their data and more open to working with startups to try to figure out what is the worth. I mean, it's what is their data worth, what value add can their data provide before, and so they tend to be much more open with actually open that data. So I think from that perspective, there's, we also heard the telecoms company there that were open to work with startups. So I do think there's an opportunity there. How we structure that, I think is kind of the tricky question. How do you create a sandbox where it's relatively safe, where it's private, where the startups are free to kind of explore, but without exposing a lot of that data, and especially some of that data is private data, right? In the case of MTR, a lot of it is kind of, there are faces there, and so I think those are the issues that we try to figure out, but definitely is, there's potential in that type of space.
think the privacy of data is a very interesting topic. And so I remember that a few days ago, and the partners of Digi42, we were talking about whether the data privacy is higher of your X-ray, the X-ray of your heart, for example, for your lung, comparing to the image or videos recorded at home. But the current situation is, so when the service is provided, there will be a form to talk to you and ask you whether you agree with the privacy regulations, and then everyone will sign yes. But then these big corps, they can start using the videos and the images recorded at your home, actually, to produce a better AI model. Yeah. So, Hajime, what's your view about this? I mean, you are basically trying to democratize the AI talent market in Vietnam, and you have been spending a lot of time in Vietnam and other countries. So, share with your experience with us.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, I would say that the AI field is kind of unpredictable, actually. So, for example, I started working on a neural network from 2005, and I never imagined that a deep learning kind of technology could suddenly emerge, and it changes a lot of things, right? So, regarding, for example, the data. It has been our common sense that we need a lot of data to learn from AI, but I'm actually a bit skeptical on it, because maybe suddenly only one image to learn a lot of things could happen, right? Or some a combination with the NLP plus the image recognition, then maybe we can dramatically reduce the number of the data for the machine learning. Then the structure will suddenly change. So I believe that actually the talent is definitely the most important. And of course, if data does not make much of the network effect, then anywhere is fine. Just a very small amount of data can let them work on a very innovative AI things. And some of the part have already some of AI part, for example, OCR, and then actually the data is already there, managed by the government, for example, in China or in Japan. And AI.
I was working for meetup and working with the largest data set in the world, and also working with the server cluster and with using neural network data. And then suddenly the server becomes cloud, and cloud instead of server. And then the data, people start calling it, if you have some amount of data, I call it big data. And I still the data analysts become data scientists. It's very fancy. And then suddenly neural network, if you make it deeper and deeper, and that's AI. Yeah. So to my personal view is actually maybe the technology is predictable, but how they call it is not predictable.
Of course it's yes, but it's correlated, of course. So without a cloud, then the AI development cannot happen. But because of the cloud, a lot of advanced happen, right? So yeah, it's because of the market, partly because of the market, or partly because of just a invention of a very small part. For example, deep learning is some drop-off function and some other 2 or 3 very tiny tips onto the traditional neural network invented into 1980s. Then suddenly the accuracy is going up. So many miracles, as well as the market demands, as well as a market change, other industry change happen. Then yeah, it's still very difficult to predict, I think.
add something to what this point between Hajime and I think I started with you, which in developed countries do they inherently have an advantage? I think that was kind of the original question. Do developed countries have, and I think from a technological perspective, probably. Right now, I think if you take a look at the UK, you take a look at the USA, they probably have a technological advantage. But then we hit the issue of data, and I think what Hajime was saying, referring to kind of the one-shot learning type of models, so being able to do more with less training data. But I do definitely think that if you take the position that look, training data is still necessary in huge volumes of training data, you can make an argument, and we were actually discussing this in Hong Kong, you can make an argument that actually data acquisition is probably a little bit more easy in this part of the world, where privacy laws are probably still as enforceable or as straight, but I think individuals are more used to giving up their privacy, right? In terms of their data, and so if that is true, then there is more data to play around with. If that is then true, then there's more training data available. So, in many ways, it going back to the original question. Even though I think the West is a lot more developed, I take the position that I do think that there's a lot of potential for Southeast Asia, for China, where actually data privacy law is a lot more looser. There's a potential to actually leapfrog and actually get even better, even faster.
As a computer vision researcher, computer vision is a branch of AI. So what's your view of data acquisition, maybe the development of AI technology?
I agree that data collection and the privacy rule is important and is a challenge. And from my point of view as a researcher at a startup, from very early stage, I think I experienced firsthand from an idea in a research lab to a real product. And I have some point of view to share about the challenge of technique. First one, I want to share about the demand. So we all know that the state-of-the-art visual intelligence technology is a general purpose, like recognition engine, and their goal is to recognize the more classes, the better. But however, in the real application, for example, most of our customers, they might come from surveillance industry. The data they want to process are captured like 24/7 and 30 images per second. So if we want to process this kind of data, do we need to use an expensive solution to process each images from a video stream? That's a problem. And also, this data may captured from a fixed angle, and they want to recognize limited classes of objects from this video. So, like, do we really need to use an expensive solution to recognize is there a spaceship in the video captured from a crossroad monitor? So I think the first challenge to put to develop a real product is to find the real demand of our customer and to develop a solution just meets their need. And another one I want to share is about the supply, and like in the past, many visual intelligence technology are rule-based methods. They are low cost but not accurate enough. And recently, emergent solutions, they are mostly learning-based methods. So they can achieve near human accuracy, but they are very expensive. And I think these two solutions are too extreme of the technology. So I believe the final commercialized product, they must be a combination of these two and to achieve a balance between performance and cost. So I think these two are the challenge to make an idea in a lab to a real product. So this is my view from a researcher, and I also want to ask Joseph, from investors' point of view, what do you think the most challenging thing in AI after you see so much AI startups?
Okay, I will answer this question in two parts. As an investor for AI startups, I have no worry. I just feel excited. So if you have any particular vertical application which you can do business overseas, just talk to us. We already invest few million US dollars in AI startup. But for non-AI companies, which is I worry about, only 1 out of 1,000 AI startups will succeed. But that one will kill your business. Imagine that you are doing A/B test day by day, and the other AI startup can do AZ test minutes by minute. So I think that all of business, including our current portfolios, have to seriously thinking about AI application. I will analog that to 2007 iPhone. All right, people now don't talk about mobile internet anymore. Smartphone mobile internet is given. So for users in next 3 to 5 years, AI will be a given. User will be spoiled by AI assisted features. So if your service is too dumb compared to others, you are dead. So that's my take on AI. And also I want to talk a few words about Taiwan, and that we are facing a tough challenge. But because I talk about a lot about vertical application and data set, yes, we have richest data set in Taiwan, public health insurance, which I believe is the best EMR system in the world. But if we can't utilize it in 3 years, I think other people will outpace us. So for Taiwan, I think it's very important to utilize our public sector's data set to build our own AI business. That's my view.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to ask Albert. I know you're busy from Viscovery, and we all know that Viscovery is AI startup who got early success, and I want you to share your experience about what the challenge you've been overcome.
So 2 years ago, people don't talk about vertical AIs as much as we do. So nowadays, it's very clear that for AI startups to survive, we have to choose a vertical and dive deep. Luckily, when we chose our path, from 2013, 2014, before I joined, we focused on product recognition. And instead of just pivoting to anything else that is desk related, the team decided to stick to things that are related to recognizing products in images and videos. So by 2015, when SoftBank China and H&Q invested in Viscovery, we already have one of the largest and most complete product data sets in Southeast Asia. The reason why we started to move away gradually from that part, the reason involves a bit more thinking in here, which is even if you could recognize products really well in a snap, but given the current AI technologies or AI technologies back then, there's limitations in accuracy rates. And if you make a mistake 3 times out of 10 times, would you be able to make a good product that sort of revolutionizes the field? My take on it is that at any point of time, there is not going to be perfect technology, but there is going to be technology that are good enough to revolutionized a field. So when face detection started appearing in smart cameras or digital cameras in the early 2000s, their accuracy rate is only less than 70%, which is the version that you get from the OpenCV face detection implementation, the old Viola and Jones method. However, it's good enough for most cases, and it really helps digital cameras provide a much better user experience. And Google search, even nowadays, they don't always return all the results that you want. It only gives you like 3 out of 10 results that might be relevant. So that was the important part of thinking, where even though we started earlier, and luckily we didn't die earlier, and there's always these limitations, and as Hajime emphasized in